welcome to another episode of the Knitting Jungle podcast. If you're new here, hello, thank you for subscribing recently. My name is Sarah, and normally on this channel I talk about everything that I've been knitting on, and sometimes crochet, machine knitting, and sewing. But today's episode is going to be a little bit different. It's going to be one of those fun recap videos where I talk about every sweater that I've knit in 2024. I've done a lot of other projects besides sweaters, but getting all of those rounded up seemed way too daunting, and a lot of those items I've actually gifted away. I've made a lot of little toys and baby knits and sweaters and things like that. So I thought, let's just stick to sweaters today. It's kind of manageable, and I have all my sweaters laid out in a nice place for me to grab. If you're not into seeing how much time and money I've wasted the past year on knitting, then no worries, I'll catch you in the next episode. But if you're like me, I love watching these videos at the end of every year because it's a really nice way to see a lot of different designers, patterns, yarn all in one place in kind of a rapid fire type of way. And so if that sounds good to you, then I'd love for you to join me here today. You can grab your knitting and maybe a nice hot cup of coffee. This is the year where I started making knitted garments for the first time ever. I did teach myself how to knit maybe 20 years ago, but I did very, very little knitting, maybe completing one or two projects every few years. I've also been able to spend a lot of time knitting this year because my two kids are finally old enough where I'm not so exhausted when they go to sleep every night, and I can spend at least 2 or 3 hours knitting every evening after they go to sleep. So I really have spent a ton of time knitting this past year, and I have a lot of sweaters to show you. But I hope nobody feels too bad if you haven't knit as many items as you like to the past year. I don't want anyone to feel bad at all. I just wanted this to be a fun recap video and kind of review all the yarns and patterns and kind of check in and see how things are holding up, which sweaters are my favorite and which ones I don't like at all. I also wanted to mention that I'll be including links to all the yarn, patterns, and the original episode where I talked about each sweater, either on the side or below in the description box, or maybe both. Also wanted to say Happy New Year to everyone. This is my first episode of the new year, and my first year on YouTube was last year, and I just wanted to thank everyone who's been watching my videos and liking and commenting. I respond to all your comments. Sometimes it takes me a few days, but I love chatting with you in the comments about patterns and yarn and anything you're working on and where you're from in the world. I love to hear all of that. So it's been really freezing here. I live right outside of Boston, Massachusetts in the US, and this morning was 13 degrees Fahrenheit, which is like -10 Celsius. So I've been definitely getting use of a lot of my knitwear. A lot of my knitwear I knitted over the summer and didn't really wear it until now. So now I've got a really good idea of what I'm actually wearing, how the yarns are holding up and all of that. So I will talk about all of that in a bit. So I'm gonna go in chronological order because it kind of shows my knitting journey, and sometimes when I learn something on one sweater, I carry that forward to my next projects. So it will make more sense if I do it that way. So we'll start off with the first sweater I ever made. I think I finished this February last year, and this is by Veronica Lindberg, also known as Kutovo Kika. I also love her YouTube channel. And this is the Room to Bloom sweater. This is from her first book called Knit This, and it's a beautiful book. She's a great designer. All of her patterns have really nice diagrams and instructions, and this was a very easy pattern to follow, even though this was my first sweater. I didn't use her suggested yarn. I used something thinner, I think. I used Madeline Tosh Merino held together with drops silk mohair, or maybe it was, I think it was Knitting for Olive silk mohair that I had in my stash for like 5 years and had never used it. So this turned out a lot more drapey than what you'll see in her example picture. And this is a typical European construction type of sweater where you start in the back and then you pick up stitches on the shoulder area and then knit those toward the front and then cast on stitches at the front and then continue the rest in the round, I think. If you want to learn more about the construction, this would be in episode 1 because I've unfortunately forgotten a lot of the details. But this was, as my first sweater, this was definitely a wake-up call. I didn't know exactly how long it would take, and this took me maybe 40 or 45 hours, I think. And I was just shocked at how much time you have to actually spend knitting to get a sweater. But I really enjoyed the process. The fabric feels really nice, but unfortunately, I find superwash merino itchy. So after I knit this, I got really into non-superwash and rustic wools, which I have knit with ever since. If you see me looking at my notes, I apologize. It's hard to remember things even from just 2 weeks ago. But anyways, this pattern goes up to a size 2XL, which will give you a finished bust circumference of 55¼ inches. And hopefully you can see I use this Madeline Tosh superwash merino in a white speckled yarn. I forget what it's called. It makes a beautiful fabric with the silk mohair. Unfortunately, I don't wear this very much because I find the non-superwash merino kind of itchy. And so I've given this to my 4-year-old and she uses this on her pillow to sleep with. So it is being used every single day, just not by me. Okay, so after I finished my very first sweater, I thought go big or go home and let's tackle a Colorwork Kofte cardigan with a steeked center and all of this stuff. So I based this pattern off of 2 different Norwegian patterns. They're in books that I can't get here in the US, and I think they might even be out of print. And I decided to put a little waistband here because that's flattering. And then I knit this one bottom up with maybe 7 stitches in the center here that I steeked later on. And when I got to the armpit, I stopped the body and then I knit the sleeves separately up until the armpit, and then I joined the body and the 2 sleeves on one giant circular needle, and I knit raglan decreases all the way up to the neckline, and then I cut open the neckline as well for like a nice scooped neck. And then I did a double knit neckband and button band so that on the inside, the raw edge where I cut is all enclosed in the button band there. I knit this on 3mm needles. Ooh, and as you can see, I did a really good job of catching all my floats. I probably didn't need to catch them as often as I did, but this is my first Colorwork sweater, so I just wanted to do my due diligence and do the gold standard of what Colorwork should or could be, I guess. And this yarn is one of my favorite yarns of all time. This is Rauma Fino. It's a Norwegian yarn, and I use the colors 401, which is this natural white color, and 414, which is a charcoal gray. It's not black, but it's like a dark blackish gray. And you can easily get Rauma Fino here in the US. It's a beautiful, rustic, non-superwash wool. I don't find itchy. I'm sure if you're sensitive to wool, this will be itchy, but in your hands, it's just very soft and fuzzy. And this is kind of felting up and fuzzing up beautifully over time, and I wear this a ton. And my favorite place to get Rauma Fino is from the Woolly Thistle, which is kind of nearby to me in New Hampshire. And they're an amazing yarn shop that champions non-superwash woolly yarns just how I like. And they source yarns from all over the world that are otherwise pretty hard to get here in the US. And I just wanted to let you know that when I link you to the yarns that I've gotten from the Woolly Thistle, those are affiliate links, which means at no extra cost to you, I receive a small commission if you are to buy any yarns using my affiliate link. And then once I finished it, I thought it would be really great to have pockets. So I did an afterthought heel kind of method here, where I just went back in and cut open a little thing here, and then I made pocket bag here. And this is one of the main reasons why I wear this cardigan so much, is because it has pockets, and I'm just really proud of my first Colorwork project, and this was kind of like a gateway into a lot more Colorwork sweaters that you're about to see. This is also the sweater that I use to force myself to learn how to knit continental style. So for this, I made myself learn by holding one color in the left hand and one color in the right hand. I learned to knit English style. But over the course of this entire cardigan, I became proficient in continental knitting, which I find very helpful for knitting colorwork. It is a fingering weight yarn, so this took a very long time. I'm not sure exactly, but I talk a lot more about this in episodes 1 and 6 if you're interested. Okay, here's the third sweater I knit. It's really similar to the previous one in that it's a Norwegian-inspired kofte. I use Norwegian wool, and I knit this bottom up with a steek in the button band area and for the neckline. And I did the same thing where I knit the body bottom up to the armpit and then knit the sleeves separately and then combined them all and did raglan decreases up to the top here. And then I also did the exact same method for the pockets here. This pattern is Sitsil Hoivik's Jaipur Kofte. And I didn't follow her pattern at all, but I did use all of her color charts and kind of just made my own swatch and decided how many to cast on and just did her exact charts, but at whatever measurements I thought would be best. So I did deviate a little bit in the waistband area, I believe, and used a few less colors than her version, I think. The neckline here is double knitted, and for some, well, it's not for some reason, but the reason why I don't wear this that much is because I need to fix this button band. This really needs to be double knitted. Right now it's all floppy and stuff, so what I need to do is pick up stitches and just knit another couple inches and fold that over. But I love this yarn. This is similar to the Ramafino from my previous sweater, but this one is called Hillesvåg Ask, and it's another really nice Norwegian rustic non-superwash wool. It's a teeny bit thicker than the Ramafino, so whereas in that one I knitted on 3mm needles, I knit this one on 3.5mm needles. So maybe it took me a few hours less than the other cardigan. And as you'll see, I love working in neutrals, but my favorite colors are also pink and green, and this is kind of that ultimate pink and green cardigan. So looking at this again has really inspired me to fix this button band because I know I will wear this a lot with the pockets and everything. And also on the steeked edge, I tried, oh, let me not forget that I don't think you have to carry any floats at all in this pattern, which is amazing. So you can see here, I don't think any here are caught. It's just the regular reverse side of the fabric. And then on the steeked edge, I used this Norwegian ribbon that I got from the Woolly Thistle, and I just sewed this over the raw edge of the steek. And if you want to learn more about this cardigan, I covered it in episodes 2 and 3. Okay, moving right along to number 4. I guess this counts as a sweater. It's kind of like a sweater vest, maybe. But this one is called the Bifurca vest, and this is by Tetti's Knit Garden. She also has a great YouTube channel if you're interested. And she is a botanist, I believe, so she has really beautiful floral-based colorwork sweaters, and I will definitely knit another one of her designs in the future. This pattern was really well written. Each size has its own chart, and full disclosure, I modified this pattern a ton, not because of any problems with the fit or anything, but I just didn't want a very elongated shoulder drop situation, so I kind of stopped knitting right here and omitted a bunch more rows that extended down past the shoulder. I don't know if I'm explaining that right, but I cover it in episodes 3 and 4 if you're interested. And her version uses a much thicker yarn, but I used a fingering weight. This is Biche et Bouche Les Petites Lambs wool in the colors white and dark gold. And this is the first time I encountered twisted rib, and after this I became addicted to twisted rib. For some reason it doesn't hurt my hand at all, which is good because I know this neckline alone, well, when I was first doing twisted rib it definitely took me a while, but this neckline alone I remember took me 4 hours. And I think I got a lot faster after that, but this yarn is also super thin. And the neckline was knit on 2.5mm needles, and the rest was on 3mm needles. And there's a lot more twisted rib here at the hem. I think I cropped this more than what the pattern suggested. I just went exactly to my natural waist and cast off there. But this is such a beautiful pattern, and I especially like these little pearl bumps here. So there's texture and color work going on, and I just really love this little vest. I haven't worn it much because I think this is kind of a spring and summer type of thing, and I finished it in maybe July or August. And I didn't wear it this fall, but hopefully this spring I will take this out and wear it. This lamb's wool is really, really soft. I can't, like I said, I haven't really worn this very much, so I don't know how it's gonna hold up, but I have no reason to believe it's gonna pill or anything like that. Oh, I just remembered something. I think I cast on like 50 or 75 too many stitches, and I had to cut and reattach something in the neckline. I forget exactly, but if you want to watch episodes 3 and 4, then you can learn more about my mishaps with this pattern. No fault to the designer at all. I think I just miscounted in a big way. Also, I mentioned that I use a much thinner yarn, so to meet gauge, I knit the largest size, which I think is a size 8 or 9. So this one comes in a lot of different sizes, which is nice. Number 5 is the Wallin seatan sweater. This is a pattern from her latest book. It has all patterns using her new yarn, which is called British Breeds Aran. So it's an Aran weight yarn, and they come in the most beautiful colors. And a pattern like this is really nice if you love all the colors in a certain yarn base and you can't choose. Well, this one I think uses every single one, so you get to work with all different colors, and the color work chart was so fun because it's constantly changing, and it's a really thick knit. Let's see, I knit this on 4.5mm needles, so this went by really quick. The pattern itself I did have a lot of trouble with. It was really confusing doing the shoulder seam shaping here. You were supposed to do some shaping here at the drop shoulder area and also decrease in the neckline at the same time. And it was just really confusing, and I did my best guess, but it kind of left a sour taste in my mouth. So I didn't wear this for a while because I was kind of like mad at it. But now that it's the middle of winter, I've worn this several times, and the yarn is so thick and luxurious and soft. For a non-superwash wool, this is really, really soft. And I just think these shades of pink and blue are so beautiful. Yeah, I also like the pink and green section, of course. And another thing about this pattern I'll say is the arms I didn't decrease as much as the pattern said because they were getting way too narrow. So I don't know, one nice commenter said that she amended the pattern to fix how confusing it was in the shoulder area, so that's good. And I'm not sure if it was my mistake about the narrowness of the sleeve or not, and I haven't gone back to investigate that, but just be careful if you're tackling this pattern. And the drape is really nice for such a thick weight. And yeah, I've been wearing this a lot. I think I knit the 2nd or 3rd size, and this one goes up to size 3XL with a finished bust measurement of 77 inches. And if you want to learn more about this sweater, I cover it in episodes 4, 5, and 6. Okay, next up is what I'm actually wearing today. This is the Circonette sweater by Kate Davies, and this is such a beautiful sweater. I think I wanted something a little bit more simple right after knitting that giant Colorwork Marie Wallin sweater. So instead I went for this next, and it has the most beautiful textured design. You don't need a cable needle, but it's kind of like faux or mock cables, and there's some other little twisted things here, and it's just a very beautiful classic design with kind of a drop shoulder, slightly ballooned sleeves, and I really like this as a functional piece, because even though the sleeves are a little bit ballooned, there were a lot of decreases coming here towards the, what's it called? Wrist. So when you're cooking or anything, you can easily roll this up and get that out of your way, and it will stay like that. So I think you knit the back and the two sides separately, and maybe you pick up stitches and do the sleeves. And this is right around when I got my knitting machine. So part of the sleeve is reverse stockinette, so like this whole half, and then this top side here has the textured pattern. So I knit this reverse stockinette on the knitting machine, and I was so pleased with myself. So I just knit this whole textured panel and then knit the reverse stockinette and then seamed them together down the middle here, if that makes sense. If it doesn't make sense, I covered it in episode 6 and 7 if you're interested. And this yarn is so soft. It's non-superwash, but super soft, kind of like as soft as Merino. And it's a blend of Polworth, Hebridean, and Romney wool. And it's called Garthenor Beacons, and the colorway is Marble, which is a very light gray, but with some little, I guess, guard hairs maybe that are a lot darker. And here, hopefully you can see some of that beautiful texture here on the sleeve. I have worn this a ton, and since it is so soft, it is pilling here at the underarm in this reverse stockinette area, but usually you don't see that, and I don't think it's that bad. And any pilling that happens in this beautiful textured section, I think is going to be kind of hidden. Ooh, I really love this twisted rib button band here. And the buttonholes are made right near and as you are making an I-cord bind off. So that is a really neat technique that I learned. And this button band sits nice and flat, so I love that. And so yes, that yarn was a DK weight, and I knit this on 4mm needles. Okay, next up is my Vildnis sweater by Fiber Tales, another one of my favorite YouTubers. This is such a beautiful sweater, and I love the wool I made it in. I wear this at least once a week. So this is the first yoke style sweater that I ever made, and this one has beautiful textured here at the yoke that's really understated and feminine. And just look at this really cool fish scale type of braid. And this little sausage roll here. I think this neckband is double knit, so folded back in on itself. And you separate for the sleeves and body, all the classic yoke sweater construction things. And the yarn I used is one of my favorite yarns from this year as well. It's by Uist Wool, which is a Scottish wool, and it's their Canuck base, which is it's a fingering weight, and they're all sold out. And I ran into a giant problem. The yarn came in 50-gram balls, and I only got 4 of them because I thought that they were 100-gram balls, which is such a dumb mistake that I made. So I had knit the yoke and one of the sleeves, and I realized I was completely out of yarn. I still had like a significant amount of the body to do and an entire sleeve. So I found some alternative yarn in a different dye batch or whatever you call. And so you can see here the other dye lot starts here. And that's a little bit embarrassing, but it honestly doesn't bother me because the feel of the wool is so amazing. And I still love this sweater. No one in person has even noticed. It's really obvious on camera, but in person no one has noticed. But no one really looks that closely at me, but yeah, that is one giant blunder that not ruined, but this could have been the ultimate sweater, and now there's something that I will never forget. But besides that, I will definitely try to buy this yarn again if it ever comes back because it's so amazing. Let me just show you a close-up. It's not just a single flat color, there's all these little brownish and whitish specks in there, and it's so soft. I think it's a Scottish Merino. This sweater also has a little bit of short row shaping here at the back neck, and it goes up to a size 6X, which will give a final chest measurement of 66 inches. This is the second sweater I attempted to use the knitting machine to help me, and I knit all the sleeves and the body on this knitting machine. And if you want to learn more about that, it's in episode 6 and 7. Okay, so by now I was really into machine knitting, and I thought I'll make my own punch cards to do color work and try doing an entire sweater on the machine. Unfortunately, this one is kind of my biggest fail. I definitely learned a lot about punch cards, machine knitting, sweater construction on the machine and all of that, but I don't wear this because the fit was kind of terrible. So this, the color work chart I have for this is a Kristen Viola pattern. It's called Rundt I Dalen, and it's in her book 1 Year of Viola Cardigans, which is my favorite book of all time, and I knit something else of hers coming up in a little bit. But she has a beautiful yoke style cardigan, and I kind of converted that into flat pieces to be made on the machine. So I really prefer how her version looked with the yoke style sweater, so I'm definitely going to be redoing this in the correct way, I guess you could say. But this was really fun to make anyways, and yeah, like I said, I can do color work on the machine no problem after the giant learning curve that it was to make this up on the machine. This is made in Hillesvåg Ask, which is one of my favorite Norwegian wools. Very soft, but still non-superwash, and has a rustic quality to it as well. And here on the sleeves are these cute little embroidered railway roses, I think they're called. And this is a Setesdal-inspired pattern, which is a certain region of Norway where they specialize in this beautiful pattern up here, usually done on black and white yarn. For this I use a very, very dark brown color and white, and I like how that looks as well. I don't usually wear black, but dark brown I wear a lot more, so that's why I chose dark brown for this one. So the reason why this was a fail is mostly because I ran out of yarn and didn't make this quite long enough. I think this section needed to be about 50% longer than what I have. And then for the raglan decreases, I accidentally decreased on every single row, but it should have been every other row, which is obvious to me now, having knit a lot more raglan sweaters. One thing that wasn't a total fail are the sleeves. I really like how the sleeves turned out. They're the perfect length, and I like this little accent color here with the embroidered roses. So when I make this again, maybe I can harvest the sleeves from this one and Frankenstein them onto the new version. We'll see. So if you want to learn more about how I made this, it'll be in episode 7 and 8. Okay, the next one I made is a free pattern from Jarbo, and this is the Loge sweater, and it's a men's design that I made for my husband, and this one turned out really well. I used Knit Rennie super soft lamb's wool cone. I got a giant cone, like 850 grams, and I held it double to get a worsted weight yarn, and I made this on 4mm needles, and I just love the shade of this green. The lamb's wool is a little bit rustic but also very soft. He wore this a few times already, and hopefully he wears it more, because this took a long time, because for more masculine designs sometimes you have to knit the body and sleeves really long. Luckily I have really long arms as well, so I can wear this too, and I actually tried it on, and I'll show you that in the cutaway. This is kind of a Gansey inspired design, I would say, because you have all this texture created with just knits and purls. So there's these little diamond motifs, some column things, some moss or seed stitch, I forget which one, and then kind of the same thing happening on the sleeves here. And it's a drop shoulder, very easy construction where you start in the back, pick up for the two front, I don't know what you call this, sleeve, shoulder area, and then cast on some more here so that you can knit in the round all the way down. I talked about this sweater in episode 8, and I just want to say that Yarbo has some great free patterns that are super underrated in my opinion, so I would definitely check them out. You have nothing to lose in a free pattern. My next sweater, I went back to Colorwork, and wow, this kind of has a weird shape on the hanger, but it looks pretty good on the body. It has a very deep armhole, and it's another yoke style sweater. The front and the back are exactly the same. Let me tell you what it is. It is the etterar number 2 by Hillesvåg, or the actual designer is named Augustinus, I believe, and she made this design for Hillesvåg, the yarn company. And this is knit in their Luna lamb's wool base, which is the most luxurious thick yarn, and it's held double with a silk mohair. So for the white silk mohair I used drops, and for the brown silk mohair I used Isair silk mohair because I only needed 1 ball, and that's kind of a pricey silk mohair. But I learned that drop silk mohair is kind of not worth it to me. Even though it's nice and cheap, it sheds like crazy, and that just makes me not want to wear it because it gets everywhere in my food, just whatever I'm wearing it will transfer to, and that's kind of not worth it to me if I can avoid it. So I learned that with this sweater. And this sweater originally had a higher neck, which I didn't do. But the yarn, I love this. I love Hillesvåg yarns. I use them a lot, I'm realizing this year. And this is just another example of their great yarns. So the exact shades of Luna I used were 440 and 420. And the Isair silk mohair color I used was 63. And this was made on 6mm needles, so this is the chunkiest knit I've made. And I've worn this a lot the past month or so when it's been really cold. And it's holding up perfectly. I'm pretty sure this isn't gonna pill because of the silk mohair. And still looks like new. Ooh, I really love these giant wide sleeves. They're just knit straight with no decreases, and I did a twisted rib here at the cuff because I love twisted rib now. And these are kind of hard to roll up. This is more of a fashion item than a practical item, but I wear this a lot with leggings or anything, sweatpants. You can get this pattern in Norwegian and English on the Hillesvåg website, and I talk more about this pattern in episode 8. And I think this took me a week or maybe 10 days to make because it was made on 6mm needles. So if you need something fast that's super warm for winter, this is definitely a great pattern for that. Okay, and here's my favorite make of 2024. Oh, it's just so beautiful. It makes me smile every time I look at it. This is the Kofte Light by Kristin Viola Odegaard from that same book I mentioned earlier, 1 Year with Viola Cardigans. And she has a light and a dark colorway version of this sweater. You can actually get the kits for this from the Woolly Thistle in Rauma Fino, which is the intended yarn for this project. But I saw someone named Anna Emily on Instagram. She made a version of this in Knitting for Olive Merino held with the soft silk mohair, and she listed all of her colors and exactly what she did. And I thought that this would make the most beautiful, softest sweater in the world, so I copied her design exactly, and it is my favorite sweater of the year. I just love this burnt golden ochre type of brown and all the different pinks and other colors going on. I think it's just so cute and beautiful at the same time, like a wearable piece of art. And since the last time I talked about this, I realized like a month after I finished it that I forgot the beautiful crocheted border here. So I just added that and it made it even better. I didn't even know it was possible, but now I like it even more than before. And the button band, I accidentally did the wrong stitch, so it was a little floppy. But after adding the crochet trim, that seems to have straightened out and it's a lot better. I did my best to match this brown with this velvet button. And this is just a regular top-down yoke style sweater. There are short rows in the back, so it fits really well. And all you have to do is steek the middle. You don't have to do anything with the neckline. And oh, I used my knitting machine for the sleeves on this. I forgot. I made a punch card with this exact background pattern. Yeah, and I did the sleeves, and I don't think you can tell. I think it looks great. The rest of the sweater was knit on 3.5mm needles, and it took kind of a while, but also I was really addicted to this when I was knitting on it, especially this colorway, this yoke area here. I think things got a little tedious in the background section, but the fabric was just so nice to work on and so soft that I really didn't mind that much. This pattern goes up to a size 3XL for a 49-inch finished bust circumference. And I made the third size, and you can see more about this in episodes 9 and 10. Okay, we're nearing the end now. This is the second to the last sweater. This is the Trojan allmoge, which is a beautiful Swedish pattern by a Swedish designer named Anna Bauer. And I knit this in a Swedish yarn called Svensk Ull, and this is their 3-ply yarn. And this is another really nice pink and green sweater. It's my favorite types of colors to knit. And then there is some red in here just to make it Christmassy. And I use the exact colorways that Anna Emily used. You can find her on Instagram. And she used the colorway Bower Forest, that's the green, and a kind of a lighter gray April Sun here in the body. And then I just used some scrap red and pink yarn for the little bell details here. And this was definitely a challenging colorwork sweater because sometimes you have 3 colors going on at a time, and then also there's a lot of purling in colorwork, purling flat and in colorwork and in the round. And so it definitely required a lot of brain power, and I made a lot of mistakes where I would have to go back maybe 20 stitches and fix a mistake and then continue. But I got there in the end, and I just love how it turned out. I made some decreases in the body because I was concerned. In some of my other sweaters, they kind of like flare out at the bottom. I really didn't want that. So I did some decreases, but I didn't do them appropriately, I would say. I think they were too sporadic. I should have done more gradual, or maybe just not at all, because some really nice commenter made me realize that if you have such a thick knit, you don't really need shaping. It should be boxy when the fabric is so kind of stiff and thick. And that really helped me think about the fabric I'm creating with my yarn in a whole different way. So thank you for that comment. So I talk about this more in episodes 10 and 11, but what happened was this was super balloony here, and about half the commenters said I should frog and re-knit the body, and then the other half said, oh, don't worry, just it'll fix itself when you block it. And I think it did fix itself in blocking, thank goodness, so I didn't have to go back and re-knit this. And yeah, so I finished this in time for Christmas, maybe 5 or 6 days before Christmas, which is good because this took 3 days to dry because it's pretty thick and now it's cold here. There's some short row shaping up here, and it has a nice wide neckline, which I love. I don't like things up near my neck, so I just think this has a really flattering fit. And the sleeves are pretty wide, just a little bit of decreases every 6 or 7 rows or something. And then I really like this rib that's knitted and purled in colorwork. And yeah, so that's a new one since last time. I was able to finish in time for Christmas, which is great news. And yep, I wore it on Christmas and I love it. I've been wearing this a lot since I finished it a few weeks ago. So I made this on 4mm needles, and this pattern has 7 sizes, and the last size has a 54-inch finished bust circumference, and I made the third size and I was kind of in between measurements. I sized up, but I think I could have sized down. But I don't mind. It's better to have a sweater that's oversized than undersized, I think. Okay, here's the last thing I made in 2024. This is a little ski sweater I made for my husband. This is an exact copy of a vintage Pendleton sweater that I saw online. And I copied this little snowflake motif up here, which is also down on the sleeve. And the sleeve has a faux mock rib that I did on the machine. Oh, don't mind all the fuzz. It's a black yarn. And then for the mountain ski scene, I used duplicate stitch. And then I put a little skiing guy right down here. So I will talk more about this in my next episode, my normal knitting episode, in a few weeks if you want to learn more about how I made this on the machine. But I'll talk about the yarn, which is Knitting for Olive Merino, and I used black, which is called licorice, and the red claret, and the blue is called blue tit. So I really like how this turned out. It looks a lot like the original. I didn't do as many trees because the duplicate stitch wasn't looking good and it was really tedious. And I wanted to make sure he was going to wear it a lot before I spent all that time doing duplicate stitch. But he's worn it a lot since then, since I finished it just a couple days after Christmas. And I think he really likes how soft this is compared to the other sweater I made him, so he's been wearing this more. So when I make him things in the future, I will make sure that they're merino or another very soft yarn. Phew, so those are all the sweaters I made last year, my first year of knitted garments, and I don't see myself stopping anytime soon. I have so many ideas of sweaters that I want to make already and hardly enough time to make them. So thank you for sticking with me to the end if you're still here. And be sure to subscribe if you want to see what else I'm going to be making this year. I do other things besides sweaters, like little toys, little crocheted toys, and I sew a lot in spring and summer, and I make other accessories. I've made slippers, mittens, hats, and all sorts of things like that. So I'd love to see you here again next time, so make sure you're subscribed. Hit the thumbs up button if you like the video, and leave a comment about what you're working on this year and where you're from in the world. Hopefully I'll see you next time, and thank you again so much for watching. Bye!